A year ago today, Houston police officers illegally invaded the home of Dennis Tuttle and Regina Nicholas. During that no-knock raid, the Houston narcotics officers killed both Tuttle and his wife, along with their dog. The police chief blamed the victims, and the police union attacked activists and the news media.
If you're the ones that are out there spreading the rhetoric that police officers are the enemy, well, just know we've all got your number now. We're going to be keeping track of all of y'all, and we're going to make sure that we hold you accountable every time you stir the pot on our police officers. We've had enough, folks.
I'm talking to the talking heads. I'm talking to the activists who have severely just made our officers the enemy. We only had 995 people that were shot and killed by law enforcement, only 47 of which were unarmed.
Gerald Goins and Stephen Bryant have been charged with state and federal crimes. However, both have been released from custody. But they were not the only officers involved in the shootings at 7815 Harding Street on January 28, 2019. And until today, the truth about the other law enforcement officers there that day had remained untold. These are secrets the Houston police do not want you to see. When I went to pick up these records, I was detained and violated by HPD.
If you don't show it to me, you're going to leave. And you need to turn the camera off before you go any further.
Absolutely not.
That demanded his driver's license and concealed carry permit, and then they photographed those. That's weird. Now, what did they do with that? They want to know. See, they know Justin's name, but they don't know who he is. They're wanting, it's the union. You remember Joe Grimaldi.
I followed up with multiple complaints. The Houston Police Department is illegally withholding the messages and pictures I requested. The district attorney ignored my complaint. The county attorney punted me back to the Houston Police Department. And the Texas Attorney General's office claims that the police officer in official capacity is not an agent of the mayor, therefore they can disregard my allegations. Simply put, the government is not going to hold the government accountable. They don't call it the deep state for nothing. Nevertheless, it's time that I put this information out there for everyone to see. These are the officers investigated by the Harris County District Attorney's Office and the Harding Street officer-involved shootings. We still don't know who killed Tuttle and shot the other officers, and unless you demand the truth, it's likely that we will never know what actually happened that day. Felipe Gallegos Jr. was the youngest person there. He started off as an intern for a member of the Houston City Council. He then went on to community college, but by the spring of 2008 was on academic warning. He flunked U.S. and Texas politics and constitutions. His highest grade that semester was crime in America. He made a C, which I guess qualifies him to be a police officer. By the next semester, he was on academic probation, which I guess qualified him to enter the Houston Police Academy in 2009. He graduated 47th out of 68 in the police academy. He comes from a law enforcement community. His dad was from Harris County Constable's Precinct 6, which has quite a history of corruption. In fact, Junior worked as a dispatcher for the constable's office at one point. He's been sued multiple times during his short tenure as a police officer. One of those lawsuits was for arresting a protester in front of Planned Parenthood. As so often happens, Planned Parenthood called the police in an attempt to stifle their political opponent. Gallegos drove up and slapped handcuffs on the protester. He admitted that there was no other investigation before arresting him. The protester was hotboxed in the police car and eventually collapsed outside on the ground. EMS came and transported him to the hospital. The lawsuit ruled against the protester and determined that in police work, there has to be reasonable time investigation to determine that no crime has occurred and that no charges are to be filed before someone can go free. That's insane. The protester was eventually let go after the district attorney office said, hey, guess what? We can't actually prosecute someone for criminal trespass if they haven't trespassed onto the property. What a novel concept. In a deposition, Gallegos was questioned about his understanding of the First Amendment. He supposedly took the required state and federal law training. However, he couldn't remember anything that it covered. He didn't recall. He just didn't know. He claimed that he had no memory of what was included in this 8-hour course. A more recent lawsuit was filed by Nicholas Watson after Gallegos and another officer brutally beat Mr. Watson in his own driveway. They drew guns on him in his own yard and then tackled, punched, kicked, and choked him. The circumstances are questionable. Supposedly there was an attempted home entry, yet no one ever saw the suspects. They had no physical description. They didn't even know if it was a male or a female. How long did it take him to arrive on scene after the dispatch went out? He said probably immediately. We were in the area already. I'll leave it to you to think about what was really going on that night. The victim said they came up with guns and flashlights on, screaming like, "Freeze, MFer, put your hands up." They didn't ask questions, just a punch came, a fight broke out. He lost the fast food bag he was carrying. The next thing you know, he's getting choked. Then he remembers getting knocked out. When he came to, his mom was screaming. He recalled, "I'm getting attacked. They're beating me up. I'm thinking I'm fixing to get killed in front of my house." The officers were acting like animals. They said, "Why are you hauling for your mama like a little bitch?" They were bragging about how they had beat him up and whipped him. They eventually stuffed him in the car and brought him to the house where the supposed entry had occurred. Watson requested to speak to his supervisor, but the officers didn't like that. They said, "Shut the fuck up. You want to go to jail? You better just shut your ass up." Later on, they were over there high-fiving and laughing about how they knocked me out and had me hollering for my mom. Here's what the competent members of the Houston City Council had to say about the lawsuit.
It seems like we're paying out for a matter which involved a burglary of habitation, and apparently there's excessive force used. But when we start paying out $200,000 to criminals, I would like to know why we're having to do it, why that's a good idea, and what the rationale is behind it.
You can be a criminal, but you can't engage in excessive force.
And I understand that, and I appreciate that. But it's an allegation until it's proven in court, and that's still an allegation because it hasn't gone. And that's why I'm saying if we're going to mediate this, I'd just like to know. Perhaps it's probably best if we talk off the record and I'll just tag it.
It's just another example why we need executive session for real estate transactions, legal and personnel matters.
The city authorized a settlement of $200,000 just a few months before the Harding Street murders. Now, you may not believe this, but Gallegos actually received a 2-day suspension because he failed to comply with the HPD rules and regulations regarding use of force. Yes, a full 2 days for beating someone in their front yard. Hold on, but wait. No, that's not it. It was for failing to follow proper procedure when he did not document the injuries in an incident report. He was not disciplined for the actual injuries, for the actions, just for failing to put those in the report. Perhaps it makes it harder for the police department to cover up their misconduct if they don't know about the misconduct to begin with. In late 2017, Gallegos was involved in an officer-involved shooting. There is a vehicle pursuit related to a narcotics investigation. In reckless disregard of human life, the officers opened fire on the suspects, and they shot a 61-year-old woman inside of her own home. She had nothing to do with the incident. The grand jury no-billed the charge in 2018. Houston police officers, including many involved at Harding Street, have a history of attacking law-abiding Texans with no evidence of criminal activity. Gallegos was not injured on the 28th. So
Right
these look like contenders that could have killed Tuttle.
Mr. Tuttle, absolutely. They got the right trajectory, absolutely.
But that's also where the officers were standing too.
But again, yeah, if you go back to the home diagram.
And then look at these though. Look
Yeah.
at those trajectories.
Yeah. Pull back up the living room. Pull back the living room.
What is the explanation for these trajectories? Are you kidding me?
Who's standing right behind in this doorway right here? Who's standing there? 5 cops. 5 cops.
There's no explanation for this set right here. Clemente Reyna is the sergeant of the narcotics squad.
The officer that was shot in the face, again, that hopefully will be released sometime today or tomorrow or sometime this week, is a 50-year-old sergeant and a 25-year veteran of the Houston Police Department.
Reyna, like the next officer I'm going to discuss, appear to be from a different vein than the rest of the squad. He was promoted to sergeant in 2006, and in 2013 he received the Investigative Supervisor of the Year award. Before narcotics, he worked in the Internal Affairs Proactive Unit. He was involved in multiple cases that removed dirty cops. In 2 different instances, they identified a total of 4 officers who were trafficking narcotics and stealing drugs. Certainly, there's a history of misconduct when it comes to HPD officers and narcotics. He was also involved in a sting that took down a Precinct 6 constable. Remember, the same agency where Gallegos and his father worked. The dynamics of the narcotics squad have not been brought to light yet. Is it possible that the sergeant who was shot in the face was actually trying to reform the squad? Reyna evaluated the performance of many of the officers who were involved in the shooting. In the evaluation periods leading up to the shooting, he was concerned about the performance and productivity of the unit. However, after the shooting, the officers involved received the highest marks and notes saying that they're willing to place himself in harm's way to assist his fellow officers. He received discipline for multiple motor vehicle incidents, but I was unable to identify any evidence of serious misconduct. Siddell Lovings appears to be an honorable, top-notch officer. He was seriously injured during the Harding Street incident.
We're very concerned about one, and while he's stable, we just ask for prayers. He's in a really tough fight, and we're hopefully he'll be surviving. But we want a good quality of life for our officers, and our prayer would be that we lift him up in prayer and his family up in prayer, that we can have a recovery so he can have the fulfilling life that God put him on this earth to live. He's in the fight. He's in a fight. He's stable, but we need to pray for all these officers, especially the last officer.
His March performance review said that he should focus on his medical recovery. He was injured on duty and is unable to sign. Overall, his training record was very ambitious. He usually took the required courses long before other officers. However, as of July, he had not taken any training courses since before the Harding Street incident. He's a master police officer and has no significant disciplinary record. He holds a Master Business Administration degree from TWU, where he had high marks. HPD conceals officers engaged in misconduct. It appears they want a secret police force operating in the dark. Yet our personal safety and the security of a free state requires public scrutiny of police officers. I'll publish the pure facts for the public to scrutinize, even if all the other media outlets refuse to do so. But obtaining this information isn't easy, nor is it cheap. I pay tons of money for, quote, public information. If you'd like to see more government secrets and videos like this one, please consider making a donation of $10, $50, or your most generous contribution to support my work. Links and information about how to donate are in the video description below. In part 2, I'll tell you about the other 4 officers involved: Frank Medina, Nadim Ashraf, Thomas Wood, and Richard Cipollio. Be sure to enable all notifications and subscribe to my channel. You're not going to believe the no-knock search warrant that I uncovered while researching for this story. A special thank you goes out to my Patreon donors who made this report possible. And thank you to all my supporters from across the state, country, and world who have my back. Together, we will advance individual liberty and true public safety.